After 7 hours on Boeing airplane, I arrived in Madrid on Monday early morning, November 18th, 2024. I took the metro to my hotel near Gate of Sun, Madrid, the center of the city. I wanted to experience the city's public transportation system. While I took the metro to Gate of Sun, a lot of people took the metro to their working places. As the same as the United States, people mostly are watching their cell phones. Because of early morning, the traffic is not busy at about 6 a.m. People on the metro are polite. Nobody makes a loud noise and nobody smokes inside. People are not desperate to take empty seats. People sometimes fight each other for empty seats in Shanghai metro system. There are some empty seats in metro cars. So, I got a seat to sit along my 2-hour journey to my hotel near Gate of Sunday. Traveling is an exciting thing to me, but also a big challenge for a senior. As soon as I got out from the Seoul metro station underground, I saw Gate of the Sun. I paid about €480 for 4 nights in this hotel. The Puerta del Sol is a square in the Spanish city of Madrid. Since 1950, it has been home to the so-called Kilometer Zero of the country's radial highways. The oldest building in the Puerta del Sol is the real Casa de Correos, and it features the tower clock that was built and donated in the 19th century by José Rodríguez de Losada, and whose chimes at 12 o'clock at night on December 31st mark the traditional taking of the 12 grapes to the vast majority of Spaniards. These chimes began to be televised in 1962 on TV's La One, and from that year on they have not stopped being broadcast on various television channels. The Puerta del Sol is a place of rendezvous, a place of passage between different parts of Madrid. History. The Puerta del Sol was originally one of the entrances to the fence that surrounded Madrid in the 15th century. This fence included in its perimeter the medieval suburbs that had been growing outside the walls, around the Christian wall of the 12th century. The name of the door comes from a sun that adorned the entrance, placed there because the door was oriented precisely towards the east. Among the buildings that gave it prestige in the beginnings were the Church of Buen Suceso and the Convent of San Felipe el Real. Although from the 17th to the 19th centuries the gate was important as a meeting place, here was one of the most famous menaderos of the town since the Golden Age, the famous steps of San Felipe. It was not a defined square, like the Plaza Mayor, and occupied half of the current space. The Casa de Correos was built by the French architect Jaime Marquet between 1766 and 1768. It was later the Ministry of the Interior and the General Directorate of State Security during the Franco era, and is currently the headquarters of the Presidency of the Community of Madrid. It was this Casa de Correos that began to lay the urban foundations for what is now the Puerta del Sol and its growing importance as a central point of Madrid. After the conversion of the Casa de Correos into the headquarters of the Ministry of the Interior, 1847, it was decided to demolish some houses in the area to enhance the building and give it security. The result would be the creation of a large square. To this end, in application of the Mendizabal confiscation laws, the convents of San Felipe and Nuestra Señora de las Victorias, located there, were demolished, among others. Between 1857 and 1862, Lucio del Valle, Juan de Ribera, and José Morer carried out the reform of the square, giving it its current physiognomy. To do this, they maintained the alignment of the Casa de Correos on one of the sides and build residential buildings with uniform facades, defining a semicircular space. During the first third of the 20th century, it became a meeting point for the political left in the city. At the end of the Civil War, the Franco regime intended to make a new Madrid away from the previous stage of political liberalism, even if the Puerta del Sol and that Gobernation building had to disappear. In the words of Minister Serrano Suner, a major reform of the square was even planned by the architect Antonio Palacios, but in the end this plan for a renovated Imperial Madrid was abandoned due to its high economic cost. 1. In 1959, it was refurbished by Manuel Herrero Palacios, incorporating a garden area and fountains in its center. In 1986, the architects Antonio Riviere, Javier Ortega, and Anton Capital introduced a new reform, making the pedestrian area more important. The lampposts installed on the occasion of this remodeling were popularly nicknamed as suppositories and caused great controversy due to their modern design. They were finally replaced by the current Fernandino-style lampposts, although in the two central posts of the square the suppositories survived for a few more years, to be unified a few years later with those of the rest of the square. Between 2004 and 2009, construction work was carried out on a transport interchange, inaugurated on June 27, 2009, which brings the Cercanías railway network closer to the Seoul Underground Station. The station has become the largest in the world too due to its dimensions, with a depth of 28 m, a length of 207 m, and a width of 20 m. Its lobby is 7,500 square meters. The entrance to the intercom, similar to an igloo, has once again changed the physiognomy of the Puerta del Sol. On May 15, 2011, after a demonstration called by the Real Democracy Now! Platform, dozens of demonstrators camped in the square that same night, with more and thousands joining over the following week, demanding political, social, and economic change in Spain. The square thus becomes the symbol of the 15M movement. On August 2nd, the National Police evicted the last campers. Representative buildings and ornamental elements. Former location of the advertisement at number 1, Hotel Paris. Current location of Tio Pepe at number. An important landmark in this square, apart from the plaque corresponding to the aforementioned kilometer zero in front of the Casa de Correos, is the statue of the bear and the strawberry tree, a popular meeting point for the people of Madrid, erected in 1967 in front of the building of the old Hotel Paris, number 1, where the Tio Pepe sign was located. Later moved to the mouth of Calle del Carmen and relocated to its original place on September 25th of 2009. There are also plaques on the facade of the Casa de Correos, dedicated, one to the heroes of the popular uprising of May 2nd, and the other to the victims of the attacks of March 11, 2004, and to the people who collaborated on the day of the catastrophe. The statue of Mari Blanca, a reproduction of an ancient and popular sculpture that adorned the fountain that existed there. Equestrian statue of Charles III, by the Extremaduran sculptor Eduardo Zancada. A characteristic element is the neon advertising sign for Tio Pepe wines, created by Luis Perez Solero, from Burgos. Present since 1920, for it was the last survivor of the numerous advertisements that once existed in this square, located at number 1, until April 18, 2011, when it was removed and relocated to number 11 on May 8, 2014.5. The Puerta del Sol is surrounded by 14 buildings. The measurement of 635.50 meters above the average sea level of Alicante dates from the same period. The last element added in 1994 is the equestrian statue of Charles III. To choose its location, a popular referendum was called, which took place in the Puerta del Sol itself, placing the statue, provisionally during the period of the referendum, in the place it occupies more or less today. It is a bronze reproduction by Miguel Angel Rodriguez and Eduardo Zancada of the work of Juan Pascual de Mina that is preserved in the Royal Academy of Fine Arts of San Fernando. The spiral inscription surrounding the pedestal briefly describes the history of Charles III's reign. The monument is 9 meters high. As a curiosity, it should be noted that an electronic device was installed in it to ward off the pigeons that continuously landed on the statue. Commercial establishments. The Mallorquin. At the end of the 19th century, the beginning of the 20th century, the area of the Puerta del Sol corresponding to the Calle Mayor, where the Casa Cordero is located, on its first floor, was known as the Gran Bazar de la Unión, a place where objects were sold at fixed prices. This Grand Bazaar was the first large sales establishment that would give rise to department stores. At the end of the 20th century, establishments such as El Corte Inglés expanded their area of influence from Calle Preciados to the ground floors of the northern area of the plaza. At the beginning of the 21st century, the traditional shops that used to be in Puerta del Sol have been disappearing to make way for franchises, gambling halls, fast food restaurants, and other more impersonal and cold establishments. However, the century-old cafeteria pastry shop La Mallorquina survives, located on the block between Mayor and Arenal Streets, and also where the lotteries are traditionally placed. At the end of the 19th century, there was a candy store called La Pajarita. Buildings and heritage. Main facade of the Casa de Correos in Puerta del Sol. Royal Post Office. Convent of San Felipe disappeared. Convent of Nuestra Señora de las Victorias disappeared. Fountain of the Mar Blanca disappeared, in memory of which a reproduction of the sculpture that adorned it was placed during the 1986 reform. Iglesia del Buen Suceso disappeared, of which remains of its foundations have been found during the construction works of the Cercanías de Sol station. Illustrated Tertullians in the Café de Levant by Leonardo Alenza, 1839. Coffees. In the mid-19th century, there were about 10 cafés, the busiest and most popular in the capital, along with those on Calle de Alcala. At present none are active. Café Lorenzini, between the streets of Carretas and Espace Guaymina. Café de la Montaña. Café de Levant and the Nuevo Levant. Universal Café, later called Café de los Espejos. Café Lisboa. Café Correos. Café Candilas. Inns and hotels. Before the great reform of the Puerta del Sol, works to widen the Puerta del Sol, there were some inns such as the prestigious La Viscaina Inn at the end of the 19th century located in the Casa Cordero. After the renovation, the buildings in the north wing of the plaza homogenized their appearance and were reserved to be luxury hotels. Nowadays these buildings no longer have this mission and are dedicated to offices. The hotels were Hotel Paris at number 1, in the building where the Tio Pepe advertisement was formerly located and now disappeared. Hotel de los Príncipes. Hotel de la Paix. Historic shops. Heirs of the so-called Galdós in Madrid, we can mention historic shops that have already disappeared or are still preserved, such as the Gran Bazar de la Unión, the La Mallorquina pastry shop, the San Martin bookshop, or the Casa de Diego fan and umbrella shop, founded in the 18th century. Communications and transport. Appearance of the Puerta del Sol with the metro and Cercanías interchange. The Puerta del Sol has been and is one of the main hubs of public transport in the city. Numerous tram lines, trams of Madrid, converged on it. The first metro line, the works began in April 1917, was inaugurated between Sol and Cuatro Caminos on October 17, 1919, for which a beautiful access canopy was built by the architect Antonio Palacios in the center of the square, disappeared to make way for road traffic. Currently, under the Puerta del Sol, there is a multimodal station of the Regional Transport Consortium of Madrid that integrates suburban railway services and the Renfe suburban railway network. Metro lines. Sol Metro Mouth in 2017. Detail of the Sol Metro Mouth. At the Sol station in the square, numerous EMT lines have their head diverted due to the works of the Ministry of Public Works. 3 metro lines converge. Line 1, Line 2, Line 3. Commuter network. Since 2009, 2 Cercanías railway lines have been operating. C3, C4, which put Sol in direct communication with the Atacha Cercanías and Chamartin stations. Streets. The fountain of the Puerta del Sol, according to the street tile map by the ceramist Ruiz de Luna. The streets that start in the Puerta del Sol are 10. In other times there were 11. The series of them from Calle de Alcala clockwise are Calle de Alcala, St. Jerome's Race, Espace Guaymina Street, Calle de Carretas, Post Office Street, Calle Mayor, Calle del Arenal, Calle de Preciados, Calle del Carmen, Calle de la Montera. Social culture. The Puerta del Sol appears in numerous literary works, cinema and popular culture in Madrid. Cinema. Views of the Puerta del Sol, shot in 1896 by Alexander Promio, is one of the first films in world cinema. 7. The Mystery of the Puerta del Sol, shot by Francisco Elias Riquelme in 1929, is considered the first sound film in Spanish cinema. It is filmed at the gate, and the sounds of the time are heard. The Day of the Beast from 1995 by director Alex de la Iglesia. Kilometer Zero, a light comedy of entanglement, love, and Spanish eroticism filmed in Madrid in 2000. It focuses its plot on the famous meeting point of La Puerta. Theater. The Jealous of Tirso de Molina. Zarzuela. The Last Tram, 1884, by Ángel del Palacio and Ricardo Blasco. La Puerta del Sol, 1907. Choppy with libretto by Manuel Fernandez Palomero. La Villa de los Gatos, 1917. In the first of the acts. To Get a Woman by Luis Olona. The play begins in the plaza. Literature. A Gold Mine in the Puerta del Sol. Novel by Luis Bello published in Los Contemporanes, 1913. There are many literary references to the Puerta del Sol, especially in 19th century literature. In Benito Pérez Galdos's novel Fortunata y Jacinta, 1886-87, the character Juanito Santa Cruz lives in the Puerta del Sol. The Conquest of the Puerta del Sol, 1917, by Emilio Carrere. The Merchants of the Puerta del Sol, 1919, by Carmen de Burgos Colombin. Luces de Bohemia, 1924, by Valle-Inclán when Max Estrella addresses the Ministry of the Interior. Ramón Gómez de la Serna's Portfolio. A Boy in the Puerta del Sol, 1973, by Jesus Izcarre, reflects the effervescence of Madrid. Largo Noviembre de Madrid, 1980, de Juan Eduardo Zúñiga. Fernando Fernan Gómez published a novel in 1995 with the title La Puerta del Sol. The playwright Geronimo López Mozo, in his play El Arquitecto y el Relojero, 2000, implements his plot inside the post office building as well as in the surroundings of the Puerta del Sol. Practice. The Critical Journey Around the Puerta del Sol by Manuel Osorio and Bernard published in several installments from 1874 onwards. Painting. This is the setting in Francisco de Goya's The Charge of the Mamelukes. Music. It is the scenario referenced in the song Anonymous, 1988 by Mecano. Other relevant events in the square. Sculpture of the bear and the strawberry tree, at the beginning of Calle de Alcala. The painter Antonio López, in the Puerta del Sol, in 2021. Night of San Daniel or Night of the Slaughterhouse, April 10, 1865. The Civil Guard, infantry, and cavalry units of the Spanish army bloodily repressed the students of the Central University of Madrid who were serenading in the Puerta del Sol in support of the rector of the same, Juan Manuel Montalbán. Montalbán had been deposed 3 days earlier by order of the government of the moderate party of General Narvaez as a result of not having dismissed Professor Emilio Castilla, after the publication by the latter in the newspaper La Democracia of 2 articles very critical of Queen Isabel II. On February 21st and 22nd, 1865, the many merchants and street vendors that existed at the beginning of the 20th century